Diana Hoffman.
Hey friends, I'm Nikolai.
Hi, I'm Mustafa Turaman.
Hi, I'm Tanya Janka.
Hello.
And I'm excited to be the speaker at Azure Summit 2021.
It's a fantastic event that will be 11 days live streaming,
where more than 100 speakers from all over the world.
I'm excited to speak at Azure Summit about Power BI and Synapse Analytics.
And I'm going to talk about security.
And also a Microsoft MVP for Azure.
I'm speaking at Cloud Summit about automated release of .NET application.
And the best part is that this is a free event.
Come join me live at Learn TV on September 17th.
Come join me live on Learn TV on September 14th.
Come join me on Learn TV on the 14th of September this year.
A bunch of other Microsoft and community speakers.
So if you want to learn how to secure Azure, come to my talk.
Join us, it will be a lot of fun.
See you there.
See you there.
See you there.
See you there.
All right, everyone, welcome back to day two, part two of Cloud Summit 2021. I'm your host, Stephen Simon, and this second half of the day, we have packed sessions about Azure Static Apps. Then we have sessions on Azure SQL. We have sessions on DevOps, and then we also have a session on mental health and wellness in IT. So welcome back, everyone, to the part two of day two. The first half have been absolutely amazing, where we had somewhere around 8 to 7 sessions, and I'm really excited for the next session because it's going to be about static web apps, and these are pretty cool. I think they came Microsoft released them, I believe, last year, almost like an year and a half, and it's a cool product. So yeah, to talk about that, we have Rick, who is a Microsoft Azure MVP and Principal Cloud Advocate. He'll be joining us to talk about Azure Static Web Apps, hit the ground running. And without any further ado, let's invite Rick to the Cloud Summit 2021. Hi, Rick. Welcome to the Cloud Summit 2021.
Thank you very much, and thank you for that awesome introduction. I think that's the best one I've had yet.
You're very kind, Rick. Thank you so much for accepting the invitation. I really appreciate it. I know it's Tuesday, it's a weekday, and people have to work, and it's almost like afternoon. And at your place, what place you're joining us actually?
Well, I'm in my living in my home in the Netherlands, in Veldhoven. You can even see that we're still remodeling because there's still some tape left here. So I'm remodeling my own studio, but this is the first sneak peek for you guys. It's 6 p.m. over here, so it's the end of the workday.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Rick. I know we are already a couple of minutes in your session, so I won't take much of your time. I see you sharing a screen. I've added to the stream. Everybody can see it, and next 35 to 40 minutes is all yours.
Thank you very much. Okay, so again, welcome to my session, Static Web Apps, hit the ground running. As said, I'm live from the Netherlands. It's 6 p.m. over here, and we actually have some rain at the end of the day, so that's a bummer, but I'm warm and inside, so everything's fine. First up, let's do a short introduction. My name is Rick, as in the awesome introduction was already stated. I am a Microsoft Azure MVP for the 3rd year now, and I work for Badbit, which is a company that helps other companies build awesome software. So one of the things that we do is help people define their cloud migration and their migration into becoming cloud native companies. And one of the things that kept jumping in was the ability to relatively easily host static applications in Azure. That's actually one of the reasons why I'm doing this session right here today. So without further ado, let's have a look at the calendar or the agenda. We'll do a short introduction. We'll have something of the basics, part 1 and part 2, because there's a lot of basics to cover. We have some additional features on Azure Static Web Apps. We'll do a short talk on the hosting plans, and then I'll share some resources with you. It's actually awesome to see some of the comments coming in and see people from all over the world joining in for this great event. So thanks again for being here. But let's start with an introduction, right? Because we need to start by getting to know one another, or at least the product that we're talking about. So a long time ago, Microsoft started introducing static website hosting in Azure Storage, which actually enabled you to serve static content from the $web container in a storage account that was automatically created for you as soon as you enabled static website hosting. It was a feature on Azure Storage without any additional cost, and it did need or still needs explicit enabling, which means that you need to explicitly and willingly flip a switch to enable static website hosting in a storage account, and then it's there. And there's actually a few things that are less optimal for using static website hosting. And one of the things might be that there's case-sensitive file names, all of the requests will always be anonymous, and it's a read-only solution because you can have a true static web app, so it's true static website with HTML and some JavaScript and some images, that hosts just fine, but that's it. And then they thought, well, people might need just a little bit more than just static websites. So let's see if we can add another great tool that we have under our belt and see if we can make a product out of that one. So the second thing that they introduced was Azure Functions. Now, Azure Functions, of course, is already there for quite some time, but they actually bundled this with a static web app to enable you to create dynamic applications, but host them statically. And I'll come back to that later. Azure Functions enable you to accelerate your development with an event-driven, serverless compute experience. You can scale on demand and pay only for the resources you consume. I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into what Azure Functions are for those of you who don't already know. But one cool thing to know is that the logo or the icon for Azure for Azure Functions is actually a combination of the default icon for code, which is the 2 brackets with the slash, and then the maybe a little bit dated events logo, which is a lightning bolt, because those of you who have done Windows Forms development in Visual Studio know that if you select that button and you go to properties and then to the events, those events were lightning bolts. So the combination of the two, so events with data and code that runs for it, are Azure Functions. Now, let's dive a little bit deeper into how Azure Functions work, because I want to show you the power of Azure Functions as well as the power of static web apps, because there's a lot of awesome stuff in there to have a look at. And what we're going to start off with is triggers and bindings. So again, Azure Functions are primarily meant to be run serverless, so you don't specify anything about the type of machine your code runs on. You just say, hey, here's my code, run it. Now, when to run it is actually defined by the trigger. So there is an event that is happening that makes your code run. Now, that event or that trigger can be anything or virtually anything. So it might be a new message on a queue, or it might be a blob that was created in a specific container in a storage account in Azure. but it can also be an HTTP call into the endpoint that is hosted in the Azure function. And last but not least, you can also have timer triggers. So you can have a cron expression like we used to have with cron jobs a long time ago, where we could actually say, run this every minute that is divisible by 5, or run this every day at 12, or we can have those schedules in there as well. Now, those triggers are actually what cause a function to run. When the trigger happens, the function runs. If the trigger doesn't happen, nothing runs. And then the cool thing with functions is, if nothing runs, you don't pay for anything. So a function always has exactly one trigger, and that has associated data with it, which is often provided as the payload of the function or as a parameter into the call of the function. Now, next to triggers that actually make a function do its work, we also have bindings. And bindings are a way of declaratively connecting resources to your function. So you could say, I would like to bind into my storage account and read from this container that file whenever this function runs. And that enables you to really focus on getting to have your function do what it needs to do. So focus on the business logic and not focusing on, okay, so I'm going to make a connection to a storage account, and I'm going to pull in that container name, and I'm going to create if not exists because, hey, maybe it doesn't. But all of those parts of information and parts of functionality are automatically abstracted away for you by the platform when you use bindings. So a binding can be either input or output. So it can be something you feed into your function, or it can be the result of your function, or it can even be both. And then they provide their data to the function as parameters that go into the function. And I will show you a little bit how that works later on. But for now, this is the idea about triggers and bindings when you go and run Azure Functions. So if you look at it that way, Azure Functions actually has a dual abstraction. So on the one hand, you have Azure Functions themselves, which are an abstraction of your infrastructure, since when you run it in a true serverless fashion, you don't specify the amount of CPUs you need, or the amount of memory you need, or even the amount of disk space or I/O you need, or IOPS. You just say, dear Azure, this is my function, this is what triggers it, run it if you need to. And then again, if you don't run it, you don't pay for anything. And if you run it 1,000,000 times, you'll start paying a small amount of money. So that's actually the true serverless ID, right? You can scale to 0, but it can also scale into massive amounts of instances. But then next to Azure Functions that abstracts away the infrastructure of your solution, you have these triggers and bindings that actually abstract away the resources you interact with. So an HTTP trigger it's available. You get the HTTP request, and if you want to, even a custom model as the body, which is automatically deserialized for you if you want to. And any bindings that you might need to, for instance, read table storage in Azure, in a storage account, everything is provided for you as parameters if you configure your function right. And that means that you no longer have to think about everything that you need to do when you want to read a table in storage, for instance, but you can just say, hey, I'm going to configure this parameter to be bound to that type of resource that I want to use, and let's just go. Now, that's actually the power of Azure Functions, right? And then that's only part of what Azure Static Web Apps is. Now, if you go back just a little bit to where I talked about static website hosting, so that's the static website hosting in an Azure storage account, they actually have a few things that are suboptimal if you want to run this in a production environment for a company, for instance. So one of the things is that Core's support for Azure storage is not supported. You can't set that up using simply just static website hosting. But also, there's no HTTPS support for custom domains. And last but not least, there's no support for headers. So put it mildly, it's really, really simple static website hosting, right? And then there's also maybe some issues with infrastructure as soon as you start running a static website in static website hosting for a storage account and an Azure function on the other end, because you're going to have to manage multiple Azure resources. You're going to do multiple deployments for both the API and the front end that talks to it. You have to set up DNS and some cores. So it's kind of a hassle to get static website hosting, again, in a storage account, to work with an Azure function instance. So that's when Microsoft thought, this is the moment where we need to start introducing static web apps. Azure Static Web Apps, the payoff is you can develop serverless web apps fast with global reach and scale. So it's really meant for a global distributed fast solution. And the way it's doing this is that there's CDN in place, which makes the static files go into the points of presence all the way at the ends of close to our end customer, which means it runs fast. But let's first have a look at the basics from Azure Static Web Apps. So Static Web Apps automatically builds and deploys web apps from a repository, and that's actually already a big step. So as soon as you start creating a static website, or static web app, as soon as you start creating a static web app in the Azure portal, it asks you to log into GitHub, because that's the default. If you don't want to do it based on GitHub, you can also use Azure DevOps, and then you'll just say, I have a different type of solution. I want to use Azure DevOps, and you can go from there. But then it automatically, and especially when you use the GitHub enabled one, which was also the first one, by the way, that was actually provided by Microsoft, you get a tailored workflow that enables you to have your static website and its API be built and deployed right off the bat, automatically. It's all created for you and it works if you configure it correctly. And if you don't, you can always solve the issues by going into your GitHub, but I will show you that later. It separates out static assets from the traditional web server, and it's served from points geographically distributed around the world. So as I said, it's automatically distributed globally, which makes performance awesome with static web apps. Now, if we're going to look at what that looks like, it's something like we have some code changes, and then it goes into either GitHub Actions or Azure DevOps pipeline, or something that you build yourself. And then there's this magic process with the two cogs, or the two wheels, and then you get static content on the one hand and the API on the other hand. Now, as far as that static web app goes, or that static content goes, it actually supports a lot of frameworks by default. So, for instance, it supports Angular, it supports Blazor, it supports Vue, but also static site generators like Gatsby and Hugo, or custom stuff that you roll yourself, is all supported as long as they can build it inside of a GitHub pipeline. So next to this default basics, right, where we say we get a repo and we get a workflow, and then we get a site with some content and some functions underneath with that API, we could have a look at the different type of options that we have. And I would like to come back to one thing that Simon said earlier, where he said that they were introduced like a year and a half ago. They were introduced not the previous build, but the build before. That was the first introduction of Azure Static Web Apps. And the first introduction was actually really, really, really basic. They said, you can do GitHub, you can do just a couple of frameworks, and let's run it from there. And then there was a whole period of nothingness around static web apps. And then just before, I think it was Ignite, there was another big release. And then they said, hey, we now have C# functions, because the first version of static web apps didn't even support C# functions. It only supported JavaScript functions. And I think together with the C# functions, if I'm not mistaken, there was also an introduction of Blazor as a front end, being able to run Blazor in your static web app. So they were actively building, and then again, there was this whole time where nothing happened. And then this year's build, again, this big announcement, and they had, I think, then already GA'd static web apps with the basic functionality that was available. So they introduced DevOps as an option for your pipeline as well, because we started off with only GitHub and then DevOps was added. And we started out with only JavaScript frontends and JavaScript functions as a backend, but then also C# was introduced, and as was Blazor. And now we are GA. And the cool thing about the fact that we are GA now is that in the first scenario, we had nothing to say about our functions. The only thing you could do was go to the portal and then click functions under your static web app, and it would show your functions. And they weren't clickable, or yeah, they were clickable, but they didn't do anything. And you didn't see anything. There was no logging available there. And you can see that they're gradually building out the entire experience around static web apps. But you can also see that primarily it was really targeted at a different crowd than the initial Azure resources were targeted at. This was targeted at full stack devs, primarily JavaScript devs, because that was the first thing they released, JavaScript stuff, to get out their application fast and running as a static web app in an Azure environment for not so much money, because it's I think it's very cheap. So with the introduction of the GA, the general availability of static web apps, there were some extra additions to the way we could run our Azure functions behind it. So we could now have the managed functions that we already had as part of Azure Static Web Apps, but you can now also bring your own functions app. So you can have your functions app that you completely manage and develop and configure on your own, and then have that be the API behind your static web app. And features that were integrated or were added were integrated security and seamless routing. That's actually automatically helps you have the APIs under the same domain name as your static web app, and then /API as the route, which means no CORS issues, it just runs. And that's also nice for the certificates that are organized for you, that they all run on that same custom domain. By default, the API of Static Web App is an Azure function that is managed by Azure, and it's deployed by Azure Static Web Apps associated with some restrictions that function app is. And then if you provide your existing Azure Functions application of any type, which is accompanied by all the features of Azure Functions, with that configuration, you're responsible to handle a separate deployment of that Functions app. So in that case, you should do that for yourself. Now, direct access to user authentication and role-based authorization data makes the API route available to the web app securely without requiring custom CORS rules, which is nice because less configuration, the better, right? So when we look at our managed functions, so the functions that are provided for you by using static web apps and not providing your own functions app, are HTTP triggers only. And this is important because if you build a back office API that runs in your static web app and you need a timer trigger to do so, the managed functions option will not run. Well, it will not run, the timer trigger will not work. So as long as you run managed functions, no other triggers than HTTP triggers. You could use either Node.js or .NET Core or Python as a runtime. It automatically runs in a consumption plan, and then there's actually like 6 different types of ways of running Azure Functions, so 6 different types of hosting plans. But the default for a normal Azure Function app and the default for static web apps are to run on a consumption plan, which means that you're running truly serverless because you don't specify anything for the infrastructure, you just say run. Then we have integrated security available, and we have routing integration, which means mycustomdomain.com/API will be the location where you can go to the API for your static web app that runs on mycustomdomain.com. Now, as soon as you start bringing your own functions, you can use all types of triggers, since you're running it in your own function app, which you specify to run on your own way, which might be either consumption or dedicated or premium plan, which enables you to run anything that you want to run within that Azure function app. It also means that you get the possibility of using durable functions. You get the possibility of using managed identity. You can even have app service authentication and authorization token management, and the API functions are available outside of Azure Static Web Apps. Since it's, let's say, just another function app, it's just another location that you can talk to your API to. But please be advised that in this case, you will get the same, let's say, downside as we had earlier when we talked about static website hosting from storage and a separate functions app. The fact being that then you will have two resources within Azure that you're working with and that you're responsible for deploying both of them. Now, the supported backends for Azure Functions are, as said, Node.js, .NET Core 3.1, and Python 3.8. Let's see if we can start off with a little demo of a static web app. So I'm going to switch looking over here because it's on my second screen. That's the screen that I've shared with all of you. And let me really quick see if there's some questions interested in here. Static web apps will support .NET 5? Yes, but as far as I know, not yet. So Bruce Lane, again, together with Jai Sankar, asked if it will support .NET 5. I expect them to do so because Azure Functions already supports .NET 5. They use the isolated process model to do so. And the isolated process model means that we no longer leverage the power of running our application on ASP.NET so that we have a platform that can dynamically load our assemblies and then point towards the endpoints of our functions or the entry points of our functions to be able to run them. We now have isolated process, which means we build an executable, which is our function app, and then the executable is uploaded, and that's actually activated within .NET 5. As far as I know, currently, Static Web Apps does not support .NET 5 yet, but yes, it will. And then let's see. Yeah, we have for Azure Static Web Apps, what tips for someone who works on a mix of roles? Is there something simple or basic to set up for testing/learning? Well, Andrew, that's an awesome question. And let me show you right now how horribly hard or easy it is to get started with Static Web Apps. And I hope that in the end, your answer will be, well, that was easy. So let's see if we can go there. I'll minimize my presentation, which means we can now see my Visual Studio. I know it's kind of small. I will start a tool right now because this is already in presentation mode, but it's still, I'm running 4K, so that might be a little bit smaller. So let me do this, and then I think if that's the wrong screen. Do this, will it work? I'll do this a little bit differently. So there we go. If we look at what we have in this solution right now, and actually this solution is, well, let's see, Andrew, let's see what you think after I show you how this works. So first of all, let's see that this project, or this solution better, holds 3 projects, and then it's actually not that complex because models is just one model, and model holds video, and then in video, I think the thing we have is a name and a title, or a description, a URL already. So there's a few things in there, and the only reason I did this is so that I could have the models in my API on the one hand, and then use those models in my front end on the other end, and then only define them once. So that was the reason for me to do that. And then in our API, I'm going to zoom out a little bit because I'm going to show you the entire screen, and I'll just scroll into this one. Let's see, I'll go a little bit bigger. I think this might be readable. Now, let me show you a little bit what the power is of Azure Functions, right? And then, of course, because we use it in our static web app now too, it's also the power of static web apps. Now, first of all, let's look at the fact that we have this HTTP trigger thing in here. So this HTTP trigger thing that's in here actually enables it. Okay, great. Thanks, Andrew. The HTTP trigger thing actually enables us to specify a little bit about when this function is going to run. So first of all, we have an authorization level, which is only to do with a specific type of key that you can give, that you can use to somewhat secure your function, but I would never use that as the default security, since, well, the key has to be used in either a header or the URL, so it will be visible to anybody who uses the front end. And what I do here is I specify, so this HTTP trigger is going to be triggered by GET actions, so only GET. And if I want to add post, I could do, well, I would like to have post in there as well, but for now, I only want GET actions. And then I specify a route, and it actually says, so next to the my custom domain /API / it's going to be videos / partition key. And then the first thing you see here is, why is that partition key between brackets? And then the cool thing about that partition key being in brackets is the fact that whatever you put behind the slash of the behind videos / is going to be the partition key of the table that I'm going to talk to in this function. So right here, we can see the partition key be part of the parameter list of this function that's running as soon as this function is executed by the runtime. And I get that as a string out of the URL without thinking about it. Well, the only thing I need to think about it is the fact that I can put it here between curly braces, and then it will automatically be available as a parameter on my run method for my function. Now, the second thing that's cool that we see here is the binding that I have used. And the binding that I use is right here, is a table binding. And this table binding actually tells me the following. So I want to bind a cloud table, and you can see that it's automatically bound to this cloud table instance in the parameter list, again, of my function that's running as soon as I have a function to go. And then I have this storage connection string, which is the name of the setting where my connection string can be found. And I would like to talk to the videos table. Now, in the end, this completely abstracts away me talking to table storage within a Azure storage account. The only thing I need to know is this is my storage connection string. And as you can see right here, I get this cloud table. Where do I have it available? There is it. I have this cloud table instance that's automatically populated to talk to the videos table of the storage account with the storage connection string that it gets from settings, and I can talk to my storage account. Easy as that. Now, the reason we do a do while here is the fact that if a query takes too long or has too many responses, you might need to go back with the continuation token, because it can run for max 5 seconds if you do a query to table storage. And then in the end, it returns the videos. Now, the other thing that I have in here, and I'm not going to dive into that one too much, is the fact that I have a web application that actually gets the videos. It's a Razor application. So we have this page that says our videos, and this is actually built for a video series that I do together with my colleague, which are called Beta Talks. And we do like videos on static web apps, but also .NET 5 and all kinds of Azure stuff. And then in sort of a Angular-esque way or Vue-esque way, we have if videos equals null, then we'll do loading. Otherwise, I'll render a table, and then I'll do a for each, where I for each to generate a table row for each of the items in the videos that I just called from the API. And then how do I get that? Well, I do a HTTP get from JSON async on API's videos beta talks. And as you might have noticed, we had the partition key in the curly braces behind videos. So I'm going to talk towards the table that's called videos. I'm going to get the partition that is beta talks. So diving into the Azure portal, if we go into, I think it might be this one. I hope it's this one. if I dive into my tables and then into videos, and I'll just a little bit bigger. This is our storage account, which has a table that's called videos, and the content's not that important, but what is important is that these two items have the partition key beta talks, and then this one also has a partition key which is called podcast, so I'm going to expect row key 35 and 34 to be there, and the other ones to not be there. So I showed you this really simple Visual Studio solution, which with 3 projects, a Blazor and a API. And then we're going to run this one into an Azure Static Web App. To go to that Static Web App, I'm going to go back to this one right here. And this is our Static Web App as it runs at this point. But just to make sure, I'm going to create a new Static Web App to show you the process of doing so. So if I go to Static Web App, I'm going to get it right here. I'm going to create one. And then as soon as you create one, let me just see if I can make that might be better. Let me see if I can do the other subscription. So this one, I'll have the Aswa one. I'll call this one whatever, because I don't care too much for the name. And then I'll run it in West Europe. And then as you can see here, the source is either GitHub or other. Again, if you do other, you go into Azure DevOps. But if I do GitHub, I'll do sign in with GitHub. I will authorize Azure Static Web Apps. I think I can get away with this one by using my fingerprint. I don't have to use the code from my machine, so that's good. And then if I do an organization here, I pick my own organization from GitHub. Let's say that I can use Azure example 02 as the repository, and then I can even specify which branch to monitor, and I'll show you why that's important in just a minute. And then I'll do this main branch. We can have some build details on what I'm going to actually run. So will I be doing Angular? Will I be doing Blazor? Will I be doing Hugo? Well, in this case, 02, if I'm not mistaken, is Blazor, so I'll select that one. And then the last thing you need to do before you're done configuring your static web app is to tell it where's the app location, where is the API location, and at what location are you outputting the root of your client application that you would like to publish. And in this case, it might be something like project name / root/dist or something like that. So those are the only 3 technically interesting things that you need to configure. And then you can review and create, and then you'll get a you'll get a static web app, and you can run from there. So I will show you how that went on when I actually created a static web app earlier. So I have this Datatox SWA right here. I'll hide the essentials. And it's not too busy on my static web app, as you can see. But then you get this nice little resource where you can have a couple of things. So configuration is actually the same as the configuration for any Azure functions. You can just put settings in there that you would like to use in the Azure functions. And then you can see what functions are there within your, in this case, production environment. And it says no results now, but it will show me some results eventually. So get videos, that was a function that we just built, right? So that's available right there. And I'm going to skip environments for now, and then we have role management and a hosting plan. Now, just so you know, I'm going to go into the overview. I'm going to browse the application because it's an awesome application and I need the whole world to see it. Because this is the application, betatalks.swa.web. I'm going to click on videos right here on the left-hand side. And then you can see it's relatively quick. I can see Betatalks number 34. So this is from table storage, right? And then the way to prove that is by, I'm going to do this on my screen because this is going to be way too small for anybody to see. But then in the end, this is an error because I don't have part 2 of my call yet. And here we can have, I might be able to zoom this in a bit as well. Here you can see that we have this beta talks call going in the backend that actually calls API/video/beta talks. So if we open up, if we copy this value and we open it up, and instead of beta talks, I'm going to do podcast, because as you might have remembered, we also had one entry in there that was podcast, right? So if I swap out the partition key to talk to a completely different one, then you can see that we can still get the Loose Carter Imposter Syndrome episode of the podcast available. So this actually talks to the API in the backend. We've had the application here now up and running, and because of time, I'm going to do the next demo straight away. So this is my GitHub repo where the code for this application is actually at, and it's open on GitHub, so you can go there and start using Rick VD Bosch and then beta talks-SWA. But the cool thing here is, let's have a GitHub repo where more than one people are working, right? They get pull requests and you get all that kind of stuff. Now, what's really cool of Azure Static Web Apps and the way they implemented this is, let's say that I have created a branch, and that branch is a styling update. And as you can see, I created that some time ago. It's 4 commits ahead of main. So let's see. I'm going to do it on this screen because I might probably be faster. I'm going to go to pull request, a new pull request, and I would like to have styling to go into main. And then it will show that I updated some NuGet packages, which is not relevant at all. But also from Welcome to our Beta Talks app, I switched to Welcome to our new Azure Static Web App. I changed the background of the sidebar gradient to be hot pink. And of course, Comic Sans as the default font for the website with a slightly larger font, just to see what happens, right? Now, let me create this pull request. And feature/styling, I think that's a good one. And let's just have this pull request do its magic for a little while I address a couple of the questions. Because Andrew asked, why are you picking videos? Is this something that Azure Static Web Apps can cover? Well, to be honest, I pick videos, I pick videos because this was a talk that I also did when we were just starting with our Beta Talks videos. And it was actually a nice combination of doing a Beta Talks video on Static Web Apps and then using our videos in the Static Web Apps. So that was actually cross-contamination. And then another question from Andrew is, I'm more from an infrastructure/desktop background, though I look after devs, app support people in my roles, okay? Sidesh asks, when should I use Static Web App compared to app service? You should use Static Web App when you don't need server-side compute for the hosting of your web application. So if you have an ASP.NET front-end backend, or an ASP.NET front-end and an ASP.NET API that you talk to, you should use an app service because you need that server-side compute to actually build your web application and then push it over the line. If you use a SPA or a static web application that talks to for instance, a functions backend, so an API, then you can use Static Web Apps since the costs will be much lower. And this is going to be one of the things in the in one of the slides next. But there's a free solution to run your Static Web App for free. And then the paid solution is, if I'm not mistaken, €7.59. So that's peanuts compared to a basic app service plan where you pay €50 a month. So if you don't need server-side compute for your web application, run Static Web Apps. If you're using ASP.NET MVC, if you're using server-side Blazor, use an app service. With Static Web Apps, we can create websites that run on Azure and have it automatically scale. Yes, it does automatically scale. Thank you. So the static files are sent out really, really fast. Since they're static, they can be caching in there. So, and they are distributed globally. So the files themselves are really fast. And as soon as load builds on your API, you get the power of Azure Functions that actually scales it automatically for you. So yes, we can. Can you use front door for static web apps? Amol? Yeah, I would think so, because front door is just a way of having something in front of something that's web facing. So it could be in front of web apps, static web apps as well. Let's see. So probably for a Facebook-like app, static web apps and functions is not recommended. I'm not really sure if I get that one, because if your content is loading in dynamically and it comes from an API, you can do that as well. And as soon as you want your static web application to do, for instance, token validation to your backend, you can roll your own function app and still implement it, for instance, using what's it called? MSAL, so Microsoft Authentication Library. I'm glancing over to my screen, and we're going back there now because I want to show you something that's, as far as I'm concerned, one of the awesome features that we have available for static web apps. Because this is still that pull request that we had available, right? And then now you can see that there's this green check mark. And here there's this comment from GitHub Actions that actually says, Azure Static Web Apps, your stage site is ready. And what this actually built for me, and I didn't have to do anything extra for this to have it available. What this did for me is the CI/CD pipeline or workflow that was created for me automatically listens for pull requests, and then as soon as that pull request is available, it goes into Azure Static Web Apps, and then under environments, it creates this extra environment for me. So next to my production, which is based off of the main branch, I get this staging environment that's built on top of the feature/styling branch. And this is not only clickable and will automatically redirect me to the GitHub branch that this was actually built for. So I'm on that branch here if I click it. But the cool thing is, it says that the status is ready. And then just for you to see, if I click browse here, I go to that application that I just showed you, and let's close that down. Now, if I click browse on my pull request staging environment, it automatically shows me the new environment that was created based off of my pull request, and it shows me the result of the web application after the pull request. It's available for me. Even the APIs just still work, since it's still the domain where this is hosted /API/videos. But now I can see what happens when I run Comic Sans and hot pink as one of the gradient's background colors. So this is actually pretty powerful. And where Steven Simon says, let's wrap, I'm going to go really quick into this last part, and then I'll promise you I'll wrap it up. Next to all of this awesome stuff, there's also staticwebapp.config.json. And with the first versions of Azure Static Web Apps, we had route.config, which actually enables us to define some routes and have some users and authentication and authorization in place. We now have all of this as a ways of configuring our Azure Static Web App even more. So we can have HTTP response overrides. We can have, oh wait, you're not seeing the screen, right? Ooh, that's a boo-boo. Let me do that again. So you can have authorization and authentication in place. You can define routes. You can have custom MIME types. You can even add networking. And I think that's one of the questions that I saw coming in. Yes, you can configure networking in your static web app. So you can have, for instance, a navigation fallback that always rewrites into index.html, which is actually the reason why you didn't see a result when I refreshed on /videos, because by default, Azure Static Web App says, hey, I don't know that /videos route. But with a fallback navigation, you can say, if you don't know where to go to my index.html, and my single page application will fix this for you. As you can see, you can have all types of global headers and stuff available. That's really awesome. Now, there's this CLI available that you can use to run everything that you want to run for static web apps locally, which also means that you can have your application. run locally, for instance, from Visual Studio Code, and run your API from Visual Studio, and then tell the CLI to mash all of them together to run them as it would in a static web app in Azure. So that's the CLI that's available for you as well. And then I'm going to skip on to hosting plans, where it actually says what we have for free plan and standard plan. And then you don't have an SLA for standard, so that for free plan, so that's a thing. But for the rest, you have a lot of stuff available. And as it said, it was €0 for the free plan and $7.59 assumed 730 hours of use per month for the standard plan. I kind of had to rush in the end, but if there's any questions, please contact me. You can go to rickvdbosch@outlook.com or rickvdbosch at Twitter. You can find me over there. If you scan this QR code, or if you go to theurlist.com/ASWA, Azure Static Web Apps, I have a list of URLs that will point you to blog posts from other people, blog posts that I've written, documentation on static web apps, anything that you might want to know about static web apps, you should be able to find there. If you can't, contact me and I will help you find it. If my method takes more than 30 minutes, which type of function I have to use, you could use durable, but you might also want to split some things to make it not run too long. And again, I haven't said this yet, but on a consumption plan, 5 minutes is the max for runtime. You can stretch that up to 10, but that's the absolute max. Can we migrate static web apps to web apps? Well, in the end, it's relatively simple because it's static applications and an API. And that API, if it's .NET, you can just run it on an app service as well. So yeah, you could migrate over as soon as you need to. I think I overshot by a couple of minutes. Thank you. I was very welcome to do so. Thanks for having me. Again, if there's any questions, don't hesitate to find me. If you Google Rick VD Bosch, you can probably find my website and my LinkedIn and my Twitter and everything and anything that are there. So cool. Thanks for having me.
All right, Rick, that was absolutely amazing session. And I see you were going through all the comments and I think you have answered all the questions. So I think I don't need to take any one of them. Looks like people really enjoyed your session. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks, Alex. Thanks everyone who has joined. I think there was a good interaction from your end for this session. So Rick, any final thing you want to plug in before we move to next session?
Well, first of all, thanks again for having me, because I think it's really awesome that there's so many great sessions on the Cloud Summit this year. Yes, you can use App Insights. Sorry, that's a question that I'm all
again,
so let that be my final answer for questions today. Yes, you can use App Insights with static web apps. So that's there available as well. Anything that I would like to add? Yes, go and start playing with it, because you can run an Azure Static Web App without even needing an API. So what you can do is you can just have a repo that has an index.html file that says hello world, create an Azure Static Web App, and within 2 minutes you'll be up and running. And then it's really awesome to start working with it, and then you'll add the API, and then before you know it, you'll have this big system all running on a static web app, and you won't be paying a lot of money to just be able to host it from anywhere.
All right, makes sense, Rick. Thank you so much once again. We would love to have you back whenever you're available.
Cool.
And yeah, have a nice day ahead. I think evening.
Yeah, and enjoy the rest of Cloud Summit, everybody.
Thank you. Ta-da. Bye. All right, with that absolutely amazing session by Rick on Azure Static Web Apps, we now move to our next session. That's by Niko. He is a senior program manager at Microsoft, and he's going to talk about great reasons to run your cloud app on Azure SQLMI. I hope I say it right. So we are already 5 minutes in his session. So without any further ado, let's have Niko at Cloud Summit 2021. Hi, Niko. Welcome to the Cloud Summit 2021.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm not
How,
scared.
how
No,
are
I'm
things
not.
going on at your place, Niko?
Pretty cool. I'm here. Actually, I'm not in my place completely.
Mhm.
I'm in my team's office in the wonderful country of Serbia. So,
Wow.
enjoying life. Working. Scary.
All right, Niko. So I know you're going to talk about Azure SQLMI. I won't take much of your time. No, we're already 5 minutes in your session. So I see you're sharing your screen. Once you move outside StreamYard, I'm going to add it.
Just
Yeah.
confirm me last thing. How much time do I really have right now?
You have 40 minutes. You have 40 minutes.
40
Take full
minutes.
time.
Oh, that's my favorite number. Really.
Mhm. All right, I see your presentation. I'm going to add it to the stream. Everybody can see it. And next 40 minutes is all yours.
All right. So let's start the clock. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the probably one of the best, if not one of the only, session on Azure SQL Managed Instance here at the beautiful Cloud Summit 2021. Today, on our menu, together virtually with you, I will deliver the session on great reasons to run your cloud application on Azure SQLMI. My name is Niko. Don't try to pronounce my last name unless you can speak German. I'm been already introduced. There is nothing else to add besides that I'm just another data professional who loves the Microsoft data platform very much. And actually I worked, but I loved it before. So I'll give you the whole 40-minute presentation just right away in one slide. A lot of times it's easier, it's cheaper, and it's definitely safer to run your application on Azure SQL Managed Instance. And you might, just like for a second you read it, you look at my slide and you think like, what the hell? It's like, really? Like, yeah, really. And we'll see this, right? So what is Azure SQL Managed Instance for you? Azure SQL Managed Instance is a platform as a service. I mean, if you are in the Cloud Summit, you should know what PaaS, platform as a service, is. And it's like Ikigai, this concept, I'm sure you heard about it on social media or somewhere. It's, the management, the security, the evolution, the great prize. We deliver you an amazing service for your relational database. Amazing management, amazing security, amazing automated evolution, and a great price, all in one. Just, I should be sales, not a technical program manager, I think. But I mean, if you do not like sales, don't judge the presentation. I will be talking about the technical content. So Azure SQL Managed Instance is a product which exists just for a couple of years on the global scale, and it's nearly 100% like a regular SQL server that you might run on premises or on your virtualized environment or on what is called IaaS, integration. What is the word? Now I'm really stuck. Infrastructure as a service. So we have these wonderful features that are listed, and much more. So before we go into the great reasons that I will list, I promise, let's take a look at the service tiers. Currently, we offer you two distinct service tiers. One of them, the first one, is a general purpose. We believe that most business workloads can be pretty much empowered with this service tier. We offer you to host as the SPaaS solution up to 16 terabytes, currently in preview already since the end of the June. So it's one particular part of it. It has not a locally attached storage, but a remote storage. The high availability story for the general purpose is that you, in a way, it's not exactly the same, I know, but you can compare with failover cluster. You have one instance that you are using to run the workload, and you have a spare instance which you do not see, for which you do not pay, but it's in the mode of standby. If something happens, like we are patching, we're upgrading, maybe you execute what is called user-initiated failover, for whatever reasons it takes place, the standby, the hot instance, will instantly attach itself to the remote storage, and your business will carry on. That's the general purpose tier. The service tier, which we call business critical, it's an amazing offer. It's workloads that require low latency, very fast recovery, and I want to stress this really, really important thing. You do not get one replica. You can see, and actually today I published on our tech blog a query script that you can use to query and prove that we deliver you 4 instances. It's a fully blown availability group that we will run, manage, upgrade for you. And besides the primary replica, when you can write and read, we'll give you additionally another replica. The 4th replica will be readable. You can connect with the application intent equals read only on the connection string, and you can read the data from it like you would do from a regular availability group. It has a local storage because availability groups has the shared nothing concept, and it supports all the business critical things you wish a availability group would support in such scenarios, including the in-memory databases, which is an important part. Yes, we throttle you because nothing is totally unlimited, but we have a pretty elastic cloud with good memory, nice log size, and yes, throughput, and so on and so forth. I'm sure you can read what is on my slide. So this is the final little slide you have been waiting for. This is the agenda of reason. These are the reasons that I'm listing as great reasons to run your application on Azure SQL Managed Instance, or as we call it, SQLMI. It's a PaaS offering, right? So I already kind of explained it to you. Then we have the security part. Then we have the also mentioned the surface compatibility, which is near 100%. And yeah, when we get there, I'll tell you more about it. We do list and we do support a number of important trace flags. So you can ask your DBA to change some of the non-easily programmable area of the SQL server and activate if your workload really requires this functionality. Then we do support hosting the catalogs for integration services, reporting services, MDS. We support the COR, we support the service broker, SQL agent. I mean, there is so much great stuff. I mean, why talking on this slide? Let's go. Let's simply go and see the reasons. So platform as a service offering. It's basically the same code of the SQL Server you know and love. We run it for you, guaranteeing 4 nines SLA. It's really fantastic. We give you as much control and configuration opportunity as it's possible. And we improve it constantly. Your data is sacred for us. I think it's one of the key things. Nobody but you are in control of your data. We're doing a business. We are enabling you to run your application safely. That's one of the absolute paramount, the Everest for us. And on the security front, one of the reasons the deployment currently takes so much time is because we create a whole infrastructure, a whole VNet with a subnet and with all the security things we add in order to guarantee that there is unless you open the door, no door is open, okay? We allow you the threat protection, access management, information protection, and all the juiciest stuff that you have in the latest and greatest, plus beyond SQL Server version. It will be there. It will be available for you. So these are, I mean, besides what I didn't mention, it's of course TLS, always encrypted, dynamic data masking, role level security. You can do the auditing. These are the offer you can get out of the box on your SQL managed instance. If you ever consider a different offer, just, take the slide, compare, see what you get, see what you are, what you're paying for, right? And on talking about the surface of this SQL Server, it's almost 100%. There are some noticeable exceptions. I listed some of them. Some of them might change in the future. Some of them might not be changed in the future. But I want to stress a different point of view. SQLMI is not the latest release of the SQL Server. It's not SQL Server 2019. No, it's not. It includes the functionality that was developed after the release of the SQL Server 2019, including, for example, like on Azure SQLDB, we have huge enhancements for the query store, where you can use the hinting, for example. So all those juicy features, if you look for them, most of them are already on the SQLMI, and you don't need to wait for another release of the SQL Server. You can already have them. So it's, maybe 90-something plus all the new features. It's maybe even 105% of the SQL Server surface. But, don't take my word. Most of the time I am wrong. So trace flags, right? Who doesn't love a good trace flag which goes and solves your problem? Those people who use trace flags and do not know how to use them. Ask your competent application manager or DBA for them. But, talking to the data people, I'll just highlight two of my favorite ones. Is 7471, which allows you the parallel statistics sampling on the same table. So you can update statistics in parallel on the same table. Or my favorite one, 9389, which allows you a dynamic memory grant for the batch mode operations if you are using the column store indexes. So kind of like really, really nice stuff which you can tune. And there is no T-SQL for these functionalities currently. So let's talk about the SSIS. Integration services, of course, is a pretty, definite data movement service, which started with SQL Server 2005. I'm not talking the DTS, which was before. So integration services can be deployed. As a matter of fact, their catalog can be deployed on Azure SQL Managed Instance. I strongly recommend you to do deployment through the portal. Even though it's possible to do it in the Management Studio, so-called SSMS, there are some quirks, but you can do this on both ways. I personally prefer portal much more, and of course you will need to have the Azure Data Factory integration here, because we're just managing the catalog. We do not host the integration service itself. For that you will need a runtime. Okay. Just a reminder that, because some people would, question this, that you can have the SSIS jobs on SQL Agent, just like on the regular SQL Server. And besides the SSIS catalog, don't forget, and we must have been promoting this better, you can actually host, if you need it, if you are bringing a legacy application, you can put your packages also, besides the network share, which will not work, but on Azure file storage. And it's a nice property. And of course, there is a support still for the package store if you choose to do that way. Reporting services, another amazing service, but once again, this is a non-relational database SQL Server service, and we are supporting the SQL Server 2019 and potential future version. We support hosting the databases, the catalogs on our platform as a service, on our SQLMI service. Just a suggestion. Use this specific configuration that we have added to SQLMI to suppress recovery model server configuration errors. This is the link, and I will send to the organizers all the slides right after the presentation. Master data services. The same took place like for the reporting services, starting with 2019 MDS, master data services. You are able to place the master data services catalog databases, if you have multiple of them, multiple catalogs, on Azure SQLMI. The configuration process is well documented, and actually I noticed that there is no link in my slide, but I will add another link for you to consider and be aware of how to do this. So even though you cannot host the MDS themselves, you can host the catalog. For hosting MDS, you will need to run a virtual machine, because that's not a platform as a service right now. COR. A COR, a lot of people are using COR, a lot of people love COR, some people hate them, but well, I mean, I'm one who sometimes when I was a customer, I would run the regular expression, for example, calculation or search operation, and COR is absolutely brilliant. You can create assembly from a binary. You have to specify it directly. So your automated scripts, which are using the syntax create assembly from file, are not supported. And but you can do this, and this is also a recurring question. Are we restricted to the safe mode? No, you're not. Okay. We do recommend you to use the safe strict mode, but it's a default one, but it's nothing that we are blocking or preventing you from not using or using for your legacy application. I mean, if you can upgrade, we want you to stay safe, and we want our platform to serve you well. Service broker. It's enabled by default. You do not have to enable it, and it cannot be disabled. Here are a couple of comments that are not supported, but you can use and run the service broker operations, and we are supporting it. That's what I can say. SQL agent. Who doesn't love a good SQL agent? You don't have to adapt your old scripts to some random databases. If you want to use the agent with your old script, they should be principally fine. With some of the smaller limitations, of course, CMD exec will won't allow you to run within the infrastructure that we are providing you, because we're not guaranteeing you the underlying infrastructure. We guarantee you the service. We guarantee you the uptime through the SLA, but we guarantee you the exact operating system or exact operating system version, and your code might be based on that. So alerts are not yet supported, event log is not supported, smaller limitation, but largely you're free to run your favorite scheduler and schedule workload as you need them. DBmail, amazing, it's still, you can set it up. You need to be aware that you need to set it up with one particular profile name, which should be on the, no, it's not, it's in my notes. I'll update the name, and when I finish the operation, if you have a question, I will take a look at my notes. Actually, I can do this now. No, I didn't copy it. Sorry for that. So you need to set up, and you can use the DB mail. You can send the real email messages. Don't forget to open the network security group, the outbound security rules, or NSGs, network security groups, and you can use the the SQL agent jobs as alert notification if the job has been executed successfully or fail. All this stuff. Just an important warning: face it as a customer. We not allow you on SQLMI to use the attachments currently. It makes sense because you cannot use the external shares would present a potential security threat, and local file system, of course, it's, as I mentioned, for CMD exec, it will not be accessible. At least we do not expect it to become. You can take a copy-only backup. It's sometimes mentioned, and some people would say, yeah, you take the backups, and actually, you can have the proof of the backups if you run the good extended events for that, or you can actually see them in the error logs. But if you will change to your own TDE managed key, customer managed key, you can take a copy-only backup. That's your option. Just don't forget that currently we allow you to restore your backup only on Azure SQLMI. Okay. Cross database queries. This has been, pretty hot topic on Azure SQL DB, and Azure SQL DB with the Elastic queries allows you to query, but on Azure SQLMI we do not have this kind of a definition, because we give you the whole instance, and there you can run your query without any additional setups needed, just like like you used to do, right? So let's talk about my favorite topic, linked servers. And then before becoming a program manager at Microsoft, I probably would say, well, linked servers. But now I'm saying, linked servers. You can do so much interesting things. I can't say crazy because it will not be correct. Maybe some people do crazy things, but it's amazing in any way. So what you can do on linked servers will be, a topic for different conversation. But you can connect to other Azure SQL databases. You can connect to other Azure SQL managed instances. And as my good friend and incredibly important program manager in the history of SQLMI and program manager for Synapse Analytics, Jovan Popovic has already blogged publicly. Amazing idea. You can actually set up a linked server to Synapse Analytics, and through this setup, you can query the ADFS. It's just, one of those ideas I would call, in a very positive way, crazy idea, but it's absolutely amazing. So within this SQL managed instance, you can query the Azure Synapse Analytics serverless databases. It just, it might blow your mind. Really. That's the blog post I have mentioned, and I will add another note for me to add here a link. But if you just look for the title, you will definitely find it. It's an amazing idea, and Jovan has really invented a lot of great stuff for both products. Distributed transactions, they're already available in preview on Azure SQLMI, and you can run them not only between the Azure SQLMI, but you can also include the SQL database for them. So it's kind of important, and lately when I I posted just a link and I started a thread on social media on this, a lot of people were actually surprised that we allow it. And you can run across multiple servers, and this is an important feature. You will find it in the Blade for the SQL trust groups that you need to set up between the different managed instances in order to use your T-SQL or your .NET with your favorite flavor of .NET to implement your application. Or maybe you're migrating a legacy app. We see a lot of really default path for the legacy applications to go to Azure SQL managed instance. One thing the customers are choosing to migrate to the PaaS platform as a service offering. Okay, so some slideware for you. Also information, just look for it. There are blogs, documentation available on it. Replication. So we still have it in preview for quite some time. We do support it. SQL Server 2012 as the source, as a publisher, as a distributor, and you can also have the besides the transactional, the snapshot and bidirectional replications are currently available in preview. So another one, this is really amazing one offer. We had just a little bit over 3 months ago, we had just 8 terabytes as a maximum amount of space for the general purpose instances, and in the late June of 2021 we scaled it, and right now available in all the major regions. You can have the 16 terabytes of data, which as a requirement, just you will need to have at least 16 vCores to go that high on the storage, according to my memory and according to this slide that I prepared. So just check it. Don't take it just my word. Want to be correct with you. And don't forget, it's documented, there is an important current limitation that one data file cannot go over 8 terabytes. So if you want to go to 16 terabytes, you will need in just one database, you will need to have at least data files. Okay, and don't forget the tip of using more storage. Of course, you will, you pay for the reserved storage, but still, the more storage, the bigger the data or log file is, the more potential throughput we will give to you. Okay, so might be really, really an important idea for tuning your workload. So you might ask, and what about the money, right? You would like to probably check out yourself how good the price is. You can use the Azure portal or pricing calculator for that purpose. I did something, I think so. Oh no, I did not. So I can tell you from the data from the previous months, from August, that if you go and explore, you might be quite shocked by the offers that we do. And I want to stress here something that is really important. When you are using Azure and Azure SQLMI specifically, don't forget that you can have a discount on the offerings if you are doing a reservation. We are currently offering you the reservation for 3 years. We also support the Azure hybrid benefit, which is a pretty impressive thing, to say at least. And for you might find that in some regions, the price between the standard edition and the general purpose service tiers are extremely similar currently. And you might even find that in some cases, and I will list the East US too, the region I researched, that if you do a 3-year reservation for certain, if you compare certain VMs with certain managed instances offering similar capabilities, you will find that it's actually SQLMI is cheaper. So yes, a general purpose might be even cheaper than the standard edition on virtual machine, providing you all the service, the patching, all the capabilities beyond the latest and the greatest SQL Server version, and all the management and all the guarantees with this away, and it can be actually cheaper. And if you do the same with the business critical and enterprise edition, if you do the calculation, just do me a little favor, just a little favor. Do not compare the price of a single virtual machine running Enterprise Edition and an Azure SQL Managed instance, because Azure SQL Managed instance is not running one, but running 4 replicas. And you might say, you know what, Niko? That's a cool idea, but we are using the benefit which allows us to use the disaster recovery for the replicas, for the secondary replica. And I would say, yes, you are totally right, and you got one of the 3 secondaries covered. But if you want to have a secondary readable replica, you will need to pay the license for it. And in this case, this means virtually that you double the price. So just, when you calculate all those nice things, compare apples to apples. And I mean, yes, I am a kind of a marketing guy in this presentation. I don't dive really deep into the technology. I hope to get your juicy questions on that and, all your excitement and, bewilderment. But compare apples to apples to virtual machines with SQLMI to get a compare, in my books, a reasonable comparison. With that, surprisingly, just after 31 minutes, I say thank you. But I can say thank you at any time I want to say. I just have one bonus reason, just one. I rushed it up, I admit it, but one bonus reason, and maybe we'll spend like 2 minutes on that. So, besides all that, I think we have a great migration story. And besides my reason, which was already prepared, I want to stress another one. Just a couple of weeks ago, we have announced another migration story with Azure Data Studio. If you download the plugin, explore the opportunity of migrating your workloads with just a couple of clicks from, for example, your Azure SQL VM to Azure SQLMI. And stay tuned for more great migration stories. But let's take a look at something that we have already pushed and published into public preview since March of this year, and it's still most of the people are not aware, which is shocking for me, quite honestly. So you can use all these different tools, right? But people are always asking one thing only. How can we get as close as possible to online migration? And you can use a transactional replication, but you can say, yeah, great idea, Niko. Now I need to put the primary keys on all my tables, to replicate the table. And it's an old good technology, but I would love to do something more juicier, something more like artificial intelligence. I mean, or machine learning, or what is most popular right now, something DevOps like. And I would say, well, that's a great idea. Let's see what we've got in the books. And I want to stress this one: log replay service. If you are just thinking about migrating to Azure SQLMI, look at this. Just put log replace service managed instance. You definitely find it. My colleague Danny is driving this feature. It's an amazing feature since March of 2021 in public preview. It gives you more control for your database migration project. it requires still a little tolerance for downtime on the migration cutover, but it is almost, I mean, unless there is absolutely exceptional situation, you will not be able to compare it with something else. And you do not need to install any executables anywhere. I migrated a couple of databases for a friend who asked like 3-4 weeks ago, live on my computer without any additional installations. Okay, you have a very secure environment by design. When you will be giving the permissions even to read the data, the backups for the log replace service, it will require you to give the minimum permission. If you will give more permission than it is required, like, and you write permission into this container, it will say, sorry, I need just the minimum permission. I mean, isn't it nice story when somebody is careful enough to give you the things just what is required? So you forget all the privileges, blah, blah, blah. These are all like your you might switch from other techniques if there are some limitation for transactional replication, for example. And so let me just show this slide. Let me see. Yeah. So what it does, how it works. You take a backup to URL. You can do it directly. So you take a backup of your database, of relational database from SQL Server into Azure Blob Storage. You copy the full database. You might take the differential. You might keep on running every 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 2 minutes, transaction log backups. And then you start the log replace service, giving it the permission to read the data within this container, and you will be able to monitor its progress. You can stop the operation if needed. You can also execute even the automated cutover. So basically, you can take all the backups to the blob storage and then say to the log replace service, you know what, go to this container, to this blob storage, to this folder, just take everything that is there, reorder it this way, and find the last backup and do the cutover and just tell me when you're ready. And it will do it for you. Or you can run the workload, copying after the full and differential, the log backups, and then eventually doing the cutover. You know, it's a kind of the thing in the old time was called log shipping. So it is this way. One important thing I want to stress, you don't have to do the backup to URL. You can even do on your SQL Server a regular backup to your local storage or to your NAS, to your any storage you are already using, and using any, you can upload manually, you can use the PowerShell, you can use AZ copy, whatever suits you best, and copy it to the blob storage and start the LRS. So LRS, log replace service, does not need the direct access to your instance, which is a great story as far as I'm concerned. But I am biased, as you know. So requirements. We support from 2008 all the SQL servers. You need a full backup. You can have the differential. The key requirement here is we will not allow you to advance if you are not using the checksum. Okay. And here you can use AZ SQL with the current version and might change in the future as we progress towards the general availability. Azure CLI, and share access signature token. You just need read and list permissions. If you add something like write or append any other permission, it will basically goes like, bye-bye, no, we want to play safe with you. Just, give us the SASS token, shared access signature security token in the right way, as we want it to be correct. So I already told you the stories, and there are some limitations. I mean, if you want 1,000 of them, probably you should have, expected it will not take place. Even though as the Azure SQL managed instance, I'm very happy. Somebody migrating 1,000 databases. So 100 simultaneous restore processes at max. And here are the roles that you have to have in order to run the LRS. And here are some, the limitations once again. And on that, with 40 seconds, 35. That's all, folks. I'm done. I'm finished. I'm dropping not my mic. I don't have any. I'm not dropping my headset. I'm dropping my phone, and I'm ready for the questions and positive reactions, please. All right. So.
All right, Niko, that was a great session. I'm 100% sure you have not checked the comments, but there are at least 20, 25, or 30 questions for you.
Oh, no.
All right.
Okay.
Let's start from the beginning. Let's see. People say, "Are you a DJ?"
Yes, I am. Chiki, SQLMI. Sorry.
Okay, let's start. Pradeep says, "Hey Niko, are you a DJ? Love your presentation style." Okay, let's take first one. Let's start it first. What are all these? Yeah, go ahead.
What are the all system databases that can be accessed as part of the SQLMI? So you can access the master. Master is totally replicated. MSDB is totally replicated unless, and just public, cut. You are using failover groups into different regions, then you're out of luck. You need to sync the system object by yourself. If you just using one single instance, even with 4 replicas, we do it all for you.
Okay.
SQL Agent is great. We listed some limitations, but they're minor. Most of your workload will just work. Manual backups mentioned as well. You just use your own TD encryption key, and you can take the manual backups. I would suggest monitoring them.
Okay. All right. So this is the next one. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Are there any cost of performance difference between Azure SQLMI and SQLDB for comparable vCores? Oh God, that's a good question. Yeah, how do I answer it? Any cost or performance differences? You know what? It's different offerings. I've seen the prices to be comparable, but I cannot guarantee. Who knows the future? There are different offerings. They have their own advantages. Some of the new features, they shine on one before the other. So, just research, look at the origin. Use a price calculator, man.
All right, let's move to the next one. We have many, so we got to do quickly.
Yeah, okay.
Which
features are only when compared? Take a look at the documentation. Easy stuff.
Okay, perfect.
Can we upgrade SQLMI instance while running? Yes, you can. Absolutely. It might take some time as we will reprovision the whole virtual cluster for you, but it will take place and you can scale it up and down. Is there any way to increase the number of database limit in managed instance on demand? No, there is currently no. We are very aware and of this request. We're really, really considering that we're understanding that this is important for the customers.
Okay, let's see. There one question that is almost like 500 words.
Let me open the book, Mike. Okay.
Okay, let's take this one. This should be give 1 point on this.
Okay, differences. Azure SQL and PostgreSQL, right? So highlight the differences. One is our own Microsoft developed relational database service. The other one is an open source amazing service as well. But you might find as the higher demands of your workload, the more complex they are, the more Azure SQL you will love. I'm very sure of that.
That makes sense. So let's see. We don't have any more questions. We have, but we cannot take it. Andrew says, "Great session." Ganesh says, "Thank you. Great session." Everyone says great session, so thank you everyone who
Come on, you're nice people. I hope you
Yeah.
have a great morning, afternoon, evening, good night, whatsoever. Thank you for having Simon. Thank you so much for accepting this session. Hope you have an amazing Cloud Summit, and I hope to see you next year.
Yeah, I'll definitely see you next year, Nico. I thank you for accepting the invitation. It's an 11 days event. We are only down to 2 days, and we are and we
Is
have
there a Guinness Book record here, ladies and gentlemen?
we are streaming on Learn TV and other platforms, and we have already crossed over 40,000 unique viewers in just 2 days. And yeah, so thank you, Nico. We would love to host you back. We do other live shows and conferences throughout the year, and we'd love to host you over there too. We had the SQL virtual conference in the first quarter of this year, where we had almost entire team of SQL. I don't know why I missed you, but never mind.
Because I was not on the team. I just joined 5 months ago.
Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense, Nico. All right. Thank you so much. I'll catch you some other time. And thank you. And yeah, have a nice day. Ta-da. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. With that, we move to the final session of the day. It was not the final session of the day, but the final speaker of the day cannot make it. So we now move to the FastTrack. It's a session by Duo. We move to our next session. That's by Bradley and Josh on FastTrack Tales from the Field, Azure DevOps database projects for Azure Synapse Analytics. DevOps has been the most demanded session for this conference as a peekaboo, some insights. And I think let's invite our speakers right now. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Cloud Summit 2021.
Hello. Thank you for having us. It's fantastic to be here.
Hey, Simon. Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Josh. You got to update your T-shirt, right? The new logo has come.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
You got to ask Mike to give you a new T-shirt. So how are you? By the way, where you both joining us from? Starting from Bradley.
So we're actually both in Florida. I'm a little bit closer to the left side of Universal Studios and just north of Disney, and Josh is over on the east side.
Yep. So I'm on the college side over by the University of Central Florida, closer to Daytona Beach and all that.
Yeah, and you know, when we saw your session, there was like, all right, the team was like, all right, go ahead, let's just accept it because it's an absolutely amazing session and people are really looking forward for your session. So everyone who's watching, please feel free to drop your question in the comments. I will take all of them towards the end of the session. Bradley, Josh, whosoever is going to share the screen, please feel free to do it. Oh, I see Bradley's session already up there. So I'm going to add it to the stream. Bradley, if you could just click on that hide pop-up on the screen of StreamYard.
Oh, okay, you got it. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Next 45 minutes is all yours.
Perfect. Well, thank you for joining us, everyone. You're here to hear about Oracle. Oh, no, I'm just kidding. Sorry. You're here for Tales from the Field. This is a story about Azure DevOps and database projects. Back in December, back in 2020, when all of this became very, very new and workspaces were just becoming GA, we worked with some of our friends over at GitHub and some of our friends who are DevOps experts to be able to put some content together that we were delivering to customers and helping with customers. So the goal of this is for us actually to run through as much demo as possible. As a matter of fact, I have very few slides. The first slide I've got is introducing my good friend Josh Luedeman. Josh has a very, very fancy title, Principal Engineering Manager at Azure FastTrack CXP Group. You can see he's got a lot of amazing skills right there. He's a fantastic dancer, particularly flamingo. So if you ever see him on the dance floor, I encourage you to just let that roll. But he is a technical expert. I've worked with Josh for a very, very long time at 2 previous jobs now, and I just keep following him, and he can't get rid of me. So that's Josh, and then I'll let him do me.
Oh, so this is Bradley Ball. Now, you want to talk about dancer. I actually learned all of my moves from him, and I still have only dipped into 25% of the library. So this man's moves, I mean, he picked up stuff working in the office of the president. Yeah, he picked them up from both, the younger Bush and Obama as well. Picked up some of Obama's moves. None of his basketball moves, though. He's terrible. He's terrible.
I am.
Yeah. But as Brad said, this is our second company together, third role together, and been working together a long time across the Microsoft stack. And as you can see with Brad's experience as well, is well skilled across the Microsoft data platform.
Thank you. Okay, so the agenda of what we're going to try and do today, I'm going to take a pre-existing Azure Synapse Analytics workspace because in my mind, a lot of people who are especially data folk will have been excited, already provisioned, and we're going to have to kind of work backwards into how they get into DevOps. We're going to create an ARM template and create our QA environment. If you go forward the proper way, you should create your dev environment from an ARM template as well that you have in your DevOps repo. But this way, you'll get to see a little bit of how to do both of these. What we're going to do is we're going to do an artifact build and release going from dev to QA. We're going to show how to be able to make a new code branch, how to be able to merge those, do a pull request. If we have time, and I don't know that we do, I'm going to try and get through this as much as possible. I've also got a database project that will try and show you how we would migrate onto a Blake database template so you could use that to be able to move forward as well. And that is it for the slides. Why the iceberg? Because demos are cool. And just so you know, at the end of this, there's a link to the different blog series that we've done on this. More blogs will be following. But with that, I'm just going to dive straight into the demos. So here's my workspace that I already have set up. I provisioned an Azure Synapse Analytics workspace in a resource group called Cloud and AI Summit. This is my Azure Synapse workspace. This is the storage account that comes with it. So I'm going to open this up. And then there's a link to the workspace URL right here. I'm going to immediately go into here. And what we're going to do is very simply, we're going to take and we're going to link to a DevOps project. It's a blank project. You can see there's nothing in my repo yet for Cloud and AI Summit. And I'm going to link my workspace to this so that we can begin to see if I already have an existing workspace. And theoretically, this is just dev. You're not going to link QA and you're not going to link prod. I've worked with some customers who did that, and that was a bit of a spaghetti code mess where we needed to unlink it. Because what we want to do is we just want to link dev, and then we're going to use pipelines to be able to migrate the metadata code that we have per environment from one environment to another. And it figures. I'm running slow. There we go. Okay, I'm up and I'm loaded. So I'm not going to go through the typical tour. I'm going to go straight over to our developer region. You can see that I have absolutely nothing. Oh, now it's loading. There we go. Do I still have something here? I guess I do. This was a test I did earlier, so I'm just going to delete this. And you can see, even without linking to DevOps, there is a metadata repository where all these changes go. And it's going to publish this behind the scenes. Right now, I'm going to come back right down here to this manage portion, to the very bottom source control Git configuration. And I'm going to configure my Git. I'm going to do an Azure DevOps repo, but you can see we could also do a GitHub repo, but my demos are based on the Azure DevOps, so we're just going to keep going there. But we fully support either. And if you wanted to use GitHub, you could, and then you just select that repository from here. And then in the pipelines, we would select a GitHub repo instead of using the built-in Azure repo. So pretty easy to be able to do that. I'm going to connect to Microsoft. And now my name is BRABALL. You would specify the project name associated with yours. I don't think I'm in the right. Oh, there we go. There's my organization name. Sorry. All right. And then here I'm going to go to Cloud AI Summit. My repository name is Cloud AI Summit Collaboration Branch. I could create a new one. I'm going to leave this blank to begin with, though. My publish branch is going to go to Workspace Publish. My root folder is going directly to main. I could, if you've already got an existing dev, you're going to want to make sure you import anything and everything. I don't have anything created in here yet. So you can see I've got this import registry checked. And then there's no branch. And so that should actually put it to main. I don't know why it's making me create this. Normally it just goes directly to main. All right. Now the workspace published, the reason I want this is there's going to be a template and a template for JSON that are produced that is the metadata for everything we have within this workspace. And what I want is I want workspace published to be a barrier. I want main to be where I go when I'm actually going to publish, to be able to generate a build package that we're going to move from one environment to another. Until then, I want this going to another branch that I'll eventually merge workspace published down to main. I'm going to apply this. And what this is doing is this is communicating with that DevOps repo. I'm going to see this configuration information right here. Use existing. And now if I come back over here and I refresh my files, I immediately have a credentials folder, an integration runtime folder, link service, managed virtual network. But that's just that initial metadata that, that creates these folders. So let's go ahead and let's create a new branch. And we'll just call this first demo. And I'm going to go into my development pane. I'm going to do a new SQL script. We'll just do it something easy. Select star sys objects. This is going against the built-in connection, which is also the serverless SQL pool. Going to run this. I get some results. I can see it's good to go. I'm going to commit this. And any metadata that I create right now, if I created a notebook, and I don't have a Spark cluster, so I'm not going to make us wait through me putting up a Spark cluster. What I'll do is I'll just get this together, and we'll just call this notebook 1, and we'll leave it. We'll commit. I could come down here. I could create a pipeline real quick. I'm going to throw a wait in here. Commit. Now, one of the things you'll start to notice is, again, from just the workspace perspective, I've got all these different objects open. Oh, and for some reason it had me on the main branch, not the branch I thought we created. Well, in that particular case, I think I've been pushing all of these directly to the Git repository. So let me come back here real quick. Oh, cancel that, because I did want to show you creating a new branch. So let me come up here real quick. Now we'll make another notebook.
So while Brad's going through and recreating that script real quick, one of the things, this is actually a good opportunity to talk about is when you're developing, we don't necessarily want to commit changes to main. Just because it's the same thing as the the joke memes we see of I don't test my code, but when I do it in production. Your main branch of your repository is pretty much your production branch.
Absolutely. And as this is committing, there we go. If I come over to my repo files, I should see, oh, I do have these. For some reason, I didn't pick it up. I have my first demo and I have demo 1. And as you can see, there's additional items there, notebooks, SQL scripts, all that. Let me see if I can pick this up. Okay, so now I'm back here. And what I'm going to do is create a pull request. Now, you would typically want to tag this to a work item, have reviewers. I'm kind of in God mode here just so that we can fly through these demos. So, have the proper configuration in place. I'm going to complete this. And let this merge. And now if I come back over to my repo and my files, I can see that I have a notebook folder, I have a pipeline, I have a SQL script. And if I look at this, this is the JSON containing exactly what I had done. Now, let's see, let me come back up here real quick, because what I want to do is I want to go over to demo branch. Let's do a pull request for this as well. It's that way we can get it back down to main. All right. Now I'm going to use the main branch, and what I should see at this point in time is that I've got my different scripts here. And when I click the publish button, this is where in the scope of having done one of our builds, and we've gone for our 2-week sprint. And now we're at the point in time that we go, hey, we want to build and we want to push this up to QA. We've got our different objects. We're going to click OK. This is going to publish. But then I'm going to see another alert about it pushing the Git configuration as well. This is important because you'll see this finishes publishing, and then it's going to give us a successful commit to the Git repository as well. And that's where we're going, generating the templates.
So for this publishing, Brad, is this publishing to the repo right now, or are we publishing to the service in Azure?
We are publishing to the repo, but specifically, we're publishing to the workspace publish. You'll notice there's only one folder under here, Dev Cloud Summit. And where did that name come from? It came from specifically the namespace. This information right here is that JSON information. There's a template and also parameters, but everything is actually contained in here. So for example, if I type SQL, I can see demo, hold on. There we go. I can see here's my demo 2, here's my SQL script, my select star from sysobjects. It's all right here. This is actually what we're going to use to be able to push that metadata from our dev branch, our dev to our QA instance. So I'm going to want to merge my, my workspace publish.
Bradley, I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you quickly zoom a little bit?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Sorry. Let me make this a little bit larger. Is that better?
Yeah, that's better. Thank you.
No problem. Now, I don't have any pipelines yet. I don't have any CI/CD set up, but this is all getting us ready to be able to do here, because now we actually have everything we need within our repository except for one thing. We're missing our QA environment, right? I told you we were going to build that. So let me zoom a little bit more. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you to Azure Synapse Analytics, and I'm going to show you how we get a baseline ARM template. There's a lot of different repos. There's some GitHubs where you could get it. But if you're going, how do I get this? An easy way to do it is we could actually run through and fill out everything we need to within Azure and then generate an ARM template at the end. So I'm just going to fill this out real quick. My AI Summit for my resource group. Now, this managed resource group, this is actually where some managed items with Synapse actually go, especially if we have a managed VNet. So I'm going to name this Cloud AI Summit. Let's see, MRG2, because I already have an MRG1 that my dev is in. My workspace name, just so we know exactly what it is, QA Cloud Summit. This is for my Azure Data Lake Gen 2 account. I'm going to go ahead and create that. We'll keep it the same. I like to be pretty consistent in this naming. I'm going to head over to security real quick, and I have my super secret password on the other screen. So here we go. And then I'm going to allow the pipelines. This actually doesn't check just yet. I'm not going to do the double customer encryption at this point. Networking, I'm going to enable a managed virtual network. I'm going to allow create private managed endpoints to primary storage, allow outbound traffic to approved targets. That's only if I'm only keeping data specifically to an AAD tenant. I'm not going to do that at this point. No tags. I'm going to hit review and create. And remember, at this point in time, instead of letting the portal do this, I'm going to click this button, download a template for automation. It's going to take all those parameters and items that we've already created and the ARM resources as well. And if I want to, I can just download this. It's going to download this as a zip file to my zip folder. I've already taken this and I've exploded this out in a directory so that what we can do is come over here to our repo. And I'm going to do a new file. I'm going to say ARM. And then I have to have, oh, not file, sorry. I'm going to do a new folder. You have to create an initial file. And I'm going to say stuff, commit, and then under here, I'm going to make another new folder. I'm going to call this my QA Cloud Summit because that's what we're making. .me, great, more stuff. And then up here, I'm going to now upload my files. Let's see. And over here, let me just show you real quick. This is the zip folder, and inside of there is parameters and a template for JSON. I'm going to take both of those files, drag them right up here, and commit them. And if you want to, at this point in time, you can get rid of that README. Here's the parameters, everything that we did, our ECUS, QA Cloud Summit. And now that I've got this, I'm going to go and I'm going to create my first build pipeline. And I'm going to use the classic editor. I'm going to start with an empty job.
And Brad, for those folks that are watching that maybe have done deployment pipelines and stuff like that, I see you're using the classic editor. Is it possible to do YAML in Azure DevOps as well?
It's absolutely possible to use Azure DevOps. As a matter of fact, there's a really great docs article that we have CI/CD within Azure Synapse Analytics. There's an option for using GitHub Actions. There's an option for using YAML. There's multiple different ways that we could do this. Oh, let me get rid of that for my Windows update. As I was saying, there's multiple different ways that we could do this. Really depends on where you're most comfortable. I have some customers that are using YAML. I have some customers that are using GitHub Actions. So absolutely, we could do either or in this situation. I'm just going to run through the classics because I feel like anybody who is trying to figure out how to do this is going to be the easiest way to figure this out. And then from here, you can add a lot of these actions into a YAML file.
Oh, I agree. And it's a lot better, too, for the demoing here for people to follow along and walk through than just seeing a bunch of YAML steps.
Right. So I'm going to name this, first off, exactly what it's titled to be able to keep this straight. This is a build pipeline, and we're doing this to deploy ARM for an environment. All right, so first thing I'm going to do, pretty simple stuff, copy files. And I'm going to copy these files to, and we're going to use a little variable here, build.artifact staging directory. Now, I don't have to have this, but this creates a folder. Everything we're going to do, theoretically, you could deal within one build package if you wanted to combine things, but I'm going to keep everything in separate pipelines just so that way it makes it a little bit easier to understand what we're doing. I'm going to come down here. You can see here's that ARM template folder that we created, Cloud Summit. I'm going to get my template folder, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm actually just going to go up to the folder so I can get everything, all the contents within here, because I'm in my build package. I'm going to get anything that has a JSON extension to it. And then my target folder is going to be my build artifact staging directory and also that ARM folder. Next up, I'm going to do a publish to pipeline. Publish pipeline artifacts. There we go. And we're going to that build staging directory. And then for this, I'm going to call this an ARM drop. I had it explained to me that drop is always the name of the artifact file, and I just like to put what it's actually doing in front of. So I hope I'm not making any developer screen over there. I'm going to save and queue this, and I'm just going to run it. This is a build pipeline, pretty easy. It's getting stuff, it's packaging it up, so that way we're going to be able to use it in a release pipeline. So this should just run pretty smoothly once we actually go from queued to running. This may take a minute or two. Just depends on where we are in the queue line. Any questions so far? Josh, I didn't know if you saw if there's any new questions.
I was just actually flipping over now to look, but I'm not. Looks like, is there a variable used?
I did not use a variable on this initial one. On this build pipeline itself, it has a couple variables that are built in there. I just left the default ones. I will use some variables when we get to the release pipelines, depending on what we're doing. There's a verbose one, a debug one that I set to true when we're in a release pipeline. That's just because if anything goes wrong in a release, I want as much information as possible so I can figure it out. Great question, though. Okay, and so this is run. You can see we've got one published, one consumed, still finishing up just now. I open this up. I see there's my ARM drop folder. ARM is the folder, remember, because I had the slash in there for the parameter name. And then my parameters and my template JSON.
And Brad, there actually was another good question dropped in just as you started to go back, and I'd like us if we could answer it.
Yeah.
Can you explain how you get the agent running? So the agent, the build agent that you're using, I think is what the question they're referring to is, for the build agent you use, how did you get that running? And actually that one I can take real quick too, is part of the features of Azure DevOps is there's the availability of what we call pooled agents. So it'll actually spin it up. And my understanding is it's like a container basically that will spin up and do the activities that you lay out in your build pipeline. Anything you want to add to that?
I'm going to get the release pipeline going, but this is going to run for a little while. So
okay,
that'll be, I'm just going to get to a quick place. So I went to release new pipeline because there's nothing there. Empty job. And let's see. I'm good to go there. I'm going to go to my artifact, the project we're using, Cloud and AI Summit. The build package we have, again, we labeled this so we know what it was. Build, deploy, ARM for environment. It's automatically going to pull the latest build. Then I'm going to go over to my jobs, and I'm going to have two tasks that I create. The first is going to be an ARM template for deployment. Going to add that. See, and I'm going to authenticate to my subscription. There we go. And then I have to authorize it. And as soon as this finishes authorizing, I'll grab the exact same thing. If you have questions, though, get ready to queue them up, because when we get this to run, this will run for a little while.
I'm reviewing right now.
Oh, perfect. Awesome. All right. And so the action, we're going to create or update a resource group. In our case, we're updating it. The resource group. Cloud AI Summit. Our location, we're doing East US 2. The template now is where we go directly down to the file. Remember, linked artifact, there's our build deploy ARM environment, ARM drop. And then we're going to get the template for JSON, and then the template parameters. There's that one. And then for our override parameter, within this, let me come back over here real quick. Where's Donovan Cloud AI Summit and my template for JSON? Let's see, let me find SQL. Okay, so let's see, workspace, cloud connection string. There is a value we need for a SQL login administrator. And forgive me, I should have looked for this beforehand in practice. There we go. Secure string. So this is that's for the workspace default. There's also a SQL administrator somewhere in here. So what we're going to do is it's a type, a secure string. So I'm going to come up to a variable right here, and I like to be able to keep this named the exact same thing that it is within the JSON file. So I'm going to name it the SQL administrator password, and then the value. And here's where everybody gets to see my super secret password I made up just for this event. There we go, Super Azure 02. I'm also going to click this little lock sign right here, because this makes it a secure string. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back over to my tasks, and right down here in my override parameter, I'm going to do -SQL administrator login password, and then I'm going to use this $sign within the params, and this is going to call the variable we created for that password. And so that will give the SQL administrator that automatic login that we're going to create with this template deployment. That will supply that secure password for it. Now with that, we're almost done here. This will deploy the environment. However, there's one more thing I need to do. Hold on, I'm double checking something. Yes, okay. Before I do this, I need to, so this project has a managed identity. It's going to be, for me, the project name, BRABAL - Cloud Summit II, and then a GUID associated with it. If I try and deploy this and I haven't added the right security in place, I'm going to go to my resource groups, and I'm going to go to my Cloud AI Summit. Oh, no, that's MRG. There we go. And then I'm going to go to this little field right here, Access Control Group. And what this is this is the permissions. And I need to give the owner right or the user right administrator. I'm going to go with the owner right for this resource group to the managed identity associated with that. So I'm going to find that by going BRABAL - Cloud. There we go. Cloud AI Summit. Oh, I had created both. I had created more than one earlier. So I'm just going to grab them both. And then I'm going to give them the role owner. I should have allowed for a longer cleanup before deleting that, or created a different one. Okay, that one failed. That one succeeded. Ignore the failed one, because what we wanted is we wanted to be able to see that this went into the owner group. Because when I attempt to be able to deploy this, one of the things Synapse does, Synapse is going to add some permissions. And it doesn't have the right, if it's a contributor, it needs user right administrator, or it needs owner, because it needs to be able to add these roles. Contributor and user right as administrator will get it, but then you're essentially an owner anyway. So I'm gonna chalk it up to owner. So now this will succeed, but there's one other thing. That managed identity that's going to deploy that, when you deploy Synapse, it automatically becomes the Synapse administrator. Well, that doesn't let me get in there. It pretty much would leave it to where I wouldn't have access to this. So I'm going to do an inline PowerShell script. And then Azure subscription, let me authenticate here. I'm going to do an inline script. What I'm going to do is I'm going to install module AZ Synapse. I'm setting the required version to 7. The latest version, I want to say, is 15. There's a version 16. However, I've noticed that the agents within Azure DevOps don't always keep up, and it starts to give you some errors if you try and go 14 or 15. I need to increment this and just get to a point where it starts failing. I know it fails at 15, 16, and 14. At 7, it continues to run just fine. And what I'm doing is I'm doing this specifically so I can do a new AZ Synapse role assignment, workspace admin, and I'm going to QA Cloud Summit. Again, that's the name of the workspace that we're creating. Then the role definition is the workspace admin role. And then I'm adding an object ID. And that object ID is an Azure Active Directory group of which I'm a member and Josh is a member. So let's see, it says we need some attention. Let's see, and the latest version is 3.1.0 that this supports, I believe. All right, I'm going to go ahead and save that. And then I just realized I did not name this something nice that actually indicates what it's going to do. So I'm going to change this to say release deployment. There we go. We'll save that again. And then we're going to kick off this release. This one will run for about 7 or 8 minutes. So definitely a good time for questions. And if you've got them, if the questions stop and this is still running, what we'll do is we'll probably try and tackle another task just to make sure that we can get as far as possible in time.
Oh, Brad, the questions don't stop. You know this. This is DevOps with data, man. They just keep flowing, man. I don't know. So Rajesh had a good one, actually, that was, why do you need 2 branches? What is the difference between them? And I think that's a good base DevOps question. I kind of wanted us to attack that.
Absolutely. So think of branching as a way of making sure that I'm not trampling over the work you're doing. Like let's pretend, so I live in Florida, right? It doesn't snow here. But let's say we go to an amazing place. Let's say we go to Colorado. Colorado has snow. And we want to go out and we want to build snowmen. Maybe we even want to have a competition who builds the best snowman. I can build a snowman, but if we have a branch, it's almost like taking and making a virtual snowfield for you, a virtual snowfield for me. I'm allowed to build my snowman without interfering with you. You're allowed to build your snowman without interfering for me. We shouldn't be building the same thing at the same time, because that might have some issues when we merge, but those branches allow us to be able to build separately without getting in one another's way and then be able to merge them together. So from a data perspective, a good example of that would be is if I'm working with a customer and specifically we're doing something where, let's say it's a college and we want to figure out what the average grades were for last year. Well, let's say Josh is working for the same college, and what he wants to do is he wants to figure out who graduated because they're now alumni, and as a college, we want to hit them up for money and say, support us. And so I would have one development branch where I'm looking at grades and I'm building stuff. Josh would have another development branch where he's looking at alumni, so we can figure out who should we reach out to. And that allows us to be able to build things, stored procedures and things of that nature using a very specific naming convention. that can eventually be merged together, but my stuff and his stuff does not interfere with one another, and it allows it to stay clean. And if we do need to roll back some of the code, it makes it a lot easier for us to identify what code do we need to roll back. It allows us to be able to merge to perhaps like a workspace publish branch, but then when we get down to main, when we publish to main, when something publishes specifically to main, I want that to kick off an automated build that could then potentially go directly to QA, so we could have people in QA, our quality testers, our analysts, we could have them beginning to work on it. I hope that makes sense. If that long rambling explanation did not, then please feel free to come again in the comments.
No, I think that's good. And you actually touched on another question, that someone else had, is how do you configure the pipeline in the cases of deployments that have to be reverted or retracted? And I think part of what you got into there with the branches, that actually helped partially address that as well. I think that's a good thing to have.
Absolutely. Now, one thing I do want to definitely kind of warn everybody, I'm a data guy. I started out my life as a developer. I became more and more a data guy. As a data guy, I got more and more removed from DevOps. But as of late, I've gotten more and more involved in DevOps again. So there are definitely some really great folks out there, especially folks that work with Microsoft. If you're working with Microsoft, if you have access to a CSA or somebody like that, feel free to hit up those folks, because we try to make sure that we've got folks available to be able to cover all those different disciplines. When I work with customers, I've got a good friend named Nicholas McCullough. Me and Josh and Nick are going to Live 360 later this year. And Nick, I'll bring Nick in, because when people start waxing philosophy with DevOps, how do I roll this out to the company? How do I do this? I'll hang on and I'll listen to educate myself. But I pay tons of attention to Synapse and what they're doing to change that. And that's where my focus really is. His is on DevOps. And so I wouldn't want to guide somebody down a wrong direction. So there's never a bad idea to be able to look at the expertise that you have on hand and make sure to reach out to those resources. I have plenty of DevOps people that I will defer to when we get in the big weeds of DevOps projects, because you start to talk about process and you get a little bit philosophical about how does the company work? What do you need to achieve? And you can tune DevOps to be able to work for you. There's a lot of flexibility within DevOps, but you want to make sure that you've got some good standards and practices established around it.
And I'm glad you hit on that too. We're not by any means DevOps experts. We're here trying to bridge that gap that I think really exists with a lot of our customers and throughout the data community as a whole, is connecting DevOps now to data. Data as a field has kind of been a late arrival to the DevOps drive. One of the other things that has come up regularly, and I kind of wanted to address it quickly as a question, is automating test pipelines. And so one of the things that we do not touch in this is how to how to put those tests in. You can absolutely create test cases within Azure DevOps and then add them as steps in your pipeline. And one of the things, I'm actually working now to get a document out there in the chat to respond to folks, is how to add test cases through Test Studio and add them to the release pipelines. So that when that one's actually, I need to get a different link. The one I had was for specifically for Power Apps, but I'm getting a link together to put out there of just how you add those test steps to the release pipeline, so that obviously if a test fails, you can fail on that, or you can stop that release pipeline, because if the test fails, we obviously don't want to publish further. But I am getting that together for us.
Absolutely. And I'm going to come back to our resource group, because one of the things you can see at this point in time.
Your share dropped off, Brad. We may need you to.
Oh, it did? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, there you go.
So even though we're still running over here, you can see we're starting to get some resources provisioned. The QA Cloud Summit storage account, the Synapse workspace is right there. If I click in this, I should have a little bar right here. Yep, it says resources is being provisioned. So we're not quite done yet. As a matter of fact, if I come back over to just my resource groups and I do a refresh, I'll see that there's my Cloud AI Summit MRG2 for the Managed Resource Group. So we can see we're meeting with some level of success. Things are happening. Never a bad thing. This probably has a couple more minutes in it, and then what will happen is the PowerShell will run. So in the intro, how are we doing on time check real quick, Josh?
So it's 2:26 right now.
Okay, and we go till 2:30?
I believe so.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to then come over here and make a new build pipeline. We're going to let the other release pipeline continue to run because I want to make sure we at least get through this. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a build pipeline that is essentially allowing us to merge the changes to be able to go to a new environment. But again, this is going to be very similar in the beginning. We're building just that pipeline where we get the files. So let me make this something we can find. Build.
Yeah, and confirm, Brad, we are 2:30, so there's like 2 minutes.
Okay. Let's see. So we're going to change this to the new environment. This is going to be our build. We're going to do a copy files.
While you're typing in some stuff there too, we also had another question. Rajesh, currently Synapse is in preview. When can we expect GA? I wanted you to address that. I don't.
Yeah, so actually, Synapse Analytics Workspaces are in public, are GA. The Gen 2 pools that are in there right now are GA. The Spark 2 point something is GA. Spark 3.1 is still in public preview, but I expect that to change by the time we've got a big conference coming up, Ignite. I'd expect some announcements there. We do have some items that we've announced before in private preview, but we don't have any timelines to share on when those are going to go to public preview or GA or anything like that. So that I would have to leave that to the Synapse product group.
And those bits of knowledge you just added was exactly why I was stalling for you to jump in and talk about it, because yeah, there are some active pieces in preview, some GA, and thank you.
No problem. And you can see I'm going to the Dev Cloud Summit. I'm going to get everything that's JSON. And then my target folder for this, I'm going to do the build artifact staging again, but I'm making a new folder for this workspace deployment. Again, if we combined everything, that would allow us to be able to do that and not have these files all sitting in one directory. I'm going to publish the pipeline artifact. Taking that to the build staging directory. I'm going to make this drop SW for Azure Synapse Workspace. I'm going to save and queue this. That's going to make this automatically run. And it's queued up. Now, one thing I should have done, and I apologize. Let me edit this real quick because I'm going to show you this. If I wanted to, I could add triggers, enable continuous integration on the branch main, and I could add a path filter to be able to say my repo folder, which was, real quick, I believe we were at Dev Cloud Summit. And if I save this, whenever I save anything, I merge it to that main folder specifically in the Dev Cloud Summit that contains all that ARM. Whenever I merge to there, that will automatically pass that through as a build package that could then be utilized as the latest version in a release package. So let me come back over here. This is still running. Again, I expect this one's going to go pretty, yeah, it's already saying that it's successful. So let's come over here and do the release.
And as we do the release, Brad, it looks like we've hit time.
Yes. So real quick, let me click empty job here. So I will just try and fly through this as fast as I can. So we've got this on the recording. So we're going to remember this deploy ARM, merge changes for the new environment. We got our latest build. I'm going to come over to my tasks. And over here, I'm going to get the apps deployment workspace. When I click on this, there's a little, let's see, learn more. And this will kick out the information. You can see the different updates we've had on this. There's feedback forums on this if you have any feedback on it. And then this documentation, Synapse workspace for continuous deployment. This is where I was talking about where it goes through everything, even points over to my blog at some point, set up the release in Azure DevOps, and then it comes down and you can see that we're going to look at the ARM templates, the artifacts for deployment, using GitHub Actions, workflows, then there's the YAML right there. So custom parameters. So this goes through quite a bit. Really, really great resource there. So I'm going to add this task. The template is the template for JSON within here.
And then Brad, too, while you're going through this, everything, the blogs, the document, or the blogs are all linked in the slide deck, and then we'll figure out a way to get that out to folks. Because I know there was, there was a lot of comments there from the group is how can I get my hands on all this information and documentation and stuff. So yeah, we will work to get this out. Actually, if you watch my Twitter, so my name here on the StreamYard at Josh Luedeman is also my Twitter handle. Brad is at SQL Balls. We'll be tweeting out that link later this afternoon so that people can get a hold of those slides with those links.
And a really important thing is I used to have override parameters here. That was on task 0. Task 1, that's where all our latest updates and our bug fixes have gone. So you shouldn't need to specify some of the override parameters that I had to in the past. And so with this, let me just validate that this ran, because if this ran successfully, I should be able to get in here within an error. Sometimes that PowerShell script needs to run more than once. Nope, looks like I'm in here. Okay, so you can see this is up, and just to show that this worked, on the access control, I should see there's my Cloud Summit AI because, again, it created it, so it's going to get that administrative. And then there's my bball ASW workspace admins group that we had in the PowerShell script. Right now you can see there's nothing over here, though, so let me save this, go ahead and create that release. And when this finishes, I should actually be able to refresh this, and what we'll see is the content that we put in here, the different scripts, the notebook, the pipeline, they should actually end up over there. And sorry, I know we're a little bit over, so if we need to get kicked out at any point in time, please let us know. Josh, any more questions we want to hit while this runs?
No, actually, there's just been a bunch of thank yous. This is an awesome session, so thank you to you guys for appreciating it. Yeah, but at this point, yeah, the test cases, and I'll address that in a link a little bit later too.
No, and thank all of you. I mean, we were trying to hurry, so I didn't get to say this, but this is your hard-earned time, and it really matters where you decide to spend it. And we can't thank you enough for deciding to spend that time with us. And we're hoping that this works out nicely, and it helps assist you as you're continuing to learn and grow your organizations with Synapse. All right, so this says that it completed successfully. So let me refresh this real quick. Oh, did it? Yeah, there we go. Okay, so we're in our QA. We've got our SQL scripts. We've got our notebook. I come over here and here's our pipeline. So again, to kind of walk through what we did, and I know it was very, very rushed. We took an Azure Synapse Analytics workspace. We connected it to a DevOps repo in Azure DevOps. We then created a couple objects and we committed those, and they were published. And we did pull requests to make sure everything was committed to main. We did a build package for that. We then added some ARM to be able to deploy a QA. We did a build package for that. We deployed the QA environment, and then we deployed our build package to push that metadata information we had in dev over to our QA environment. There's a lot more. There's going to be more blogs coming. We've got some additional stuff. Database projects work with this. There's a different type of database project. You can't use a DAC pack, but you can use SQL scripts for serverless databases. And then one little gotcha I would give you is if you deploy a pipeline, if you deploy a notebook, make sure your Spark cluster is named the exact same thing in dev and also in QA and also in prod. It actually gives you an error right now that says it's a pipeline error, but it's not a pipeline error. Trust me, I found this out. This was a lot of hard work one day. It was just that the notebook that we had associated was pointing to a cluster, and that cluster did not exist in the QA environment. With that, I think that's everything I've got.
Yep, and then I went ahead and got back with Simon to get the link out for test tasks in Azure DevOps. So that'll be coming out in a comment well, actually it just landed too in the YouTube link and Facebook and everywhere else. So anyone who had questions about how to add tasks to those pipelines, it's right there. And then, like I said, watch for Brad and I on Twitter. We'll be tweeting out the deck so that you can get the links to all the blogs and the 3 slides, 5 slides. Sorry, forgot about the bio slides.
Yeah,
5 slides in the deck. We got to hand those out. But they have the actual valuable links, which are more important than any bio slide.
Yeah, and we'll send those out very, very shortly because again, that's really only the important stuff in there, and they're very detailed. They step through everything step by step. Just remember, part 4 is kind of old. When you get to that part 4 and you're doing that deployment pipeline, let me edit this real quick so I can show you. Just make sure that when you're in this task right here, you're on 1.star because that's where all of those great bug fixes that have occurred. And as you can see, there's been quite a bit from the 25th of November last year all the way up until early August. So they're doing a great job of getting things fixed and patched and making sure everything works and is self-contained within the DevOps project.
All right. Well, thank you to Simon for having us. We really appreciate it. And to the team at Cloud Summit, really appreciate being here. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
All right, gentlemen, what an amazing session it was. I think you both deserve an entire day, and I'll just leave you with that audience in the chats, right? It won't stop for 6 hours. If you stay here, if you keep continuing your session, I believe the comments will still keep on flowing. And at this moment, we have around 700 people watching across platform. Imagine if they were like the other day, they were like around 8,000 people watching. I don't think we could have handled this session in that situation because we have more of the developer audience, and people really like when people go ahead and share more about the tips and the real world scenario. When people share it. So I think people really connected with your session. I have taken all the questions. I just can't even count how many questions were there, and so many thank you and amazing sessions that people have said it. Any final thing, Josh and Bradley, you would like to plug in before we move to the next part of the summit?
On behalf of me, I'd like to say thank you as well, just to let you know a little bit about what we do. We work in engineering for FastTrack for Azure. So we help customers all the time accelerate their workloads to Azure. So if you have any questions, reach out to your account team and ask them to, for help from FastTrack. We'd be glad to see how we can help. There's also were some other questions, Simon, that we didn't get to.
Yeah.
They were somewhat outside of the scope. I'm still going to go over those with Brad, and we'll be tweeting out some answers to those, and we'll hashtag them Cloud Summit too, so that folks can get answers, because there was some good questions in there, like differences of Azure SQL versus Azure Postgres.
Yeah,
so.
I saw that.
Yeah. And again, thank you guys so much for having us. It's a delight to be here. And again, I really love the user base. I love how passionate everybody is. And it makes it very easy to participate about this. I mean, because let's face it, there's something not quite right about all of us. We love technology to the point that we get excited. Sometimes we do something like we get the DevOps project to run successfully, and we go, yes, and you think that we just scored a winning touchdown in something or soccer, but if we went and we explained to somebody else what we did, they'd look at us like we'd just grown a third eyeball in the middle of our head, because they don't understand it. And so it's wonderful when we can all kind of get together, those of us that have that passion for technology, and really get to contribute to one another. So thank you so much for having us.
No, I think it was an absolutely amazing session, Bradley and Josh. And we do events like this across the year. In the year 2021, we are committed to do 21 events like this. And past year, we did 20 events like this, 2020 events, and 2021, 21 events. And we do almost daily live shows on Learn TV, Microsoft Channel 9. That's how we do it. And we would love to host you both in other events and live shows. And also I'll stay in touch with both of you. And yeah, thank you so much. It was absolutely amazing to have both of you, the absolutely amazing duo from the FastTrack. And yeah, we'll see you some other time. Have a great day ahead. And yeah, have a nice week.
You too. Take care.
Thanks, Simon. Take care.
Bye. All right, with that absolutely amazing session to end the day, I believe the end of the day could have been any better than the Bradley and Josh session. We're going to take a couple of minutes break, and then we're going to come back to announce the winner of the day. We've had many contests going on for the live comment contest, Twitter contest, and LinkedIn contest. So let's say thanks to our sponsors in about 2 or 3 minutes, then I'll be back.
Life in operations. It's a mix of planned and unplanned work. Operators frequently find themselves getting interrupted with an endless stream of tickets, often for doing the same things over and over again, and those tickets are often escalations to yet another team. Resolving these tickets leads ops teams to searching documentation and runbooks, looking for steps to complete routine procedures. Hopefully, the docs are up to date and the operator has access, and they don't make a mistake. And of course, that the business can afford to wait. Wouldn't it be great if there was a better way? What the operators really need is their runbooks to be automated. Here's where Rundeck can help. Rundeck by PagerDuty is a leading solution for runbook automation. Customers use Rundeck to delegate automation to the right people in the organization. Now users get self-service access to operations that previously only subject matter experts could perform. Rundeck automates IT workflows and processes, replacing the previously manual procedures found in documentation. Rundeck doesn't replace existing automation. It makes existing automation, scripts, and commands more secure, auditable, and safe to run. Rundeck is a central hub for automation, connecting key tools and infrastructure in operations workflows. Rundeck helps teams resolve incidents quicker, avoid interruptions, and get more done, all while ensuring things are locked down and remain compliant. First responders are empowered to resolve incidents themselves instead of escalating, minimizing disruptions and reducing outage time. Operators become more productive. Developers stay focused. IT users can solve problems for themselves with the click of a button. Rundeck customers regularly see 60% shorter incidents, escalations cut in half, and 15 to 20% increase in productivity. Sign up for a demo today.
ScriptRunner, the #1 for PowerShell management. We get it. You were hoping that PowerShell would save your day, but you figured out that it is not user-friendly for non-experienced colleagues. Managing the increased demand on IT is a growing challenge, and running scripts manually is still very time-consuming and complex. Welcome to ScriptRunner, the #1 for PowerShell management. ScriptRunner runs on PowerShell scripts. It combines everything you need to efficiently manage and automate your complex IT infrastructure. With Script Runner, you'll be able to make it easy for your team to perform administrative tasks without any knowledge of PowerShell, have a transparent overview on all PowerShell activities, and most importantly, free up your IT resources for more relevant tasks such as innovation and development. Download your free trial now and unlock the power of PowerShell.
All right, welcome back. I was just looking at somewhere else. Welcome back, and it's time we announce the winners for the day. And before I do that, let's have a peekaboo on what's on day 3 of Cloud Summit 2021. So to start with, okay, let me go ahead and actually zoom it. Maybe I think, yeah, that makes sense. So the event starts at 6:30 a.m. Eastern time zone. So all the time that you see on the website, it is mentioned in the Eastern time. So it starts at 6:30 a.m. So probably I don't think so there would be many Americans joining in or people from US. It's usually Oceanic and Asians and Europeans. It starts with the Azure custom vision. Then we move into bot to start with AI and bot. Then we move to introduction to Azure SQL. If you are someone who have not yet started, it's a good session to attend. Then a session is by Wolfgang, who is a Microsoft MVP. He's going to talk about a session related to data. I believe he's going to talk about how you can use data from SAP, Power BI, and data lakes. Followed by, we have a session by Marco, who's going to talk about .NET and Azure. Then again, Azure SQL, then Azure DevOps, serverless, then a cloud in general. Then, I mean, there are a lot of sessions. This one is by PagerDuty, the ad that you just saw by one of our partners. Then we take a break of 30 minutes, as always. And then we have the keynote. Keynote is by Kyle Cinnamon. If you know, Kyle Cinnamon is a program manager at Microsoft and was one of the featured speakers at Microsoft Build. So yeah, thanks, Kyla. And then we have Christopher Harrison. Christopher Harrison is again a senior program manager at Microsoft. If you remember, before Microsoft Learn, there used to be Microsoft Virtual Academy, and he's the actual rock star of that era. I mean, I don't say he's old, but and then we have integrating my career stories into the Head in the Cloud by Luedeman, who's actually the product marketing manager teams at Microsoft. So those are the sessions for tomorrow. Just after this live show ends, we're going to update the embed chat and the video over here. So if you just refresh the page in about a couple of hours after we end the summit, you will find the day 3 videos. Having said that, let's go ahead and do a giveaway. We have already done the giveaway for the live chat in the first half, but maybe I believe we should be doing it too, because we have 2 every day, two halves every day. So the way this works is that you have to use Cloud Summit hashtag in the chats while you ask any questions to the speaker, and then we pick any one person randomly with this tool. So are you ready? Let's see. Are you ready, guys and girls? Okay, let's see. In the count of 3, 2, 1, let's do it. I definitely need to add some music over here or drum rolls. Let's see who wins. Let's see. Who wins it? Jaga Jasus, you win the Cloud Summit swag kit. Take a screenshot of this, go to Azure Summit website, do a contact us, or just drop us an email, and we will make sure that we ship you the Cloud Summit swag kit after the summit ends. The next winner that we have from LinkedIn is Amit Kumar. Has taken a screenshot, and he has shared that he's attending the Cloud Summit 2021. So thanks, congratulations, Amit. You are the winner of LinkedIn contest for the today. And just drop us an email with a screenshot, and we'll make sure that we give you the goodies. And the winner from the Twitter is Ganesh. Ganesh has been really active throughout the summit. He's been tagging speakers, he's been taking screenshot. So thank you, Ganesh, for all your efforts. And you are the winner for the Twitter contest. And please shoot us an email with the screenshot, and we'll make sure that we ship you the goodies. Having said that, that's it. That's it for day 2 of Azure's Cloud Summit 2021. I want to thank you to everyone who has joined, literally everyone who has joined, even for a minute, to every single speaker, people behind the stage, and to every single person who is asking the questions. Your questions make speakers feel good, and that's how they feel a lot more confident. So thank you everyone who has been dropping comments in the chats and asking questions, telling how they feel about this session. Today we're gonna wrap this day 2 over here, and we will be back tomorrow at 6:30 a.m. Indian 6:30 a.m. Eastern time zone, which is about 4 p.m. Indian. So if you're joining from India, it would be around 4 p.m. Actually, you can actually say it if I'm not wrong. Let me give you the exact date and time. So tomorrow we start at tomorrow we start at 6:30 a.m. Eastern time zone, 12:30 p.m. Central European time zone, and 4 p.m. Indian time zone. That's where we start. Thank you everyone for joining us today. It has been an absolutely amazing day 2, and I'll see you tomorrow. Until then, take good care of yourself. Keep posting on Twitter, keep posting on LinkedIn. You never know, we'll find someone who has been really creative and will go ahead and give away some of the swag kits. So thank you everyone. My name is Stephen Simon, signing off for today, and we'll see you tomorrow, day 3 of Cloud Summit 2021, the largest cloud event focused on Azure.